Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe. Several hours before last night's episode of Raw, WWE announced current WWE champion Drew McIntyre has tested positive for Covid-19. This is WWE's first public acknowledgement of Covid within their company, despite two separate outbreaks in 2020, where talent like Kayla Braxton, Renee Young, and AJ Styles personally confirmed they had tested positive at some point during the year. In a video that aired on Raw last night, McIntyre revealed more about his situation. "I am one of the fortunate ones with no symptoms, but I assure you, COVID should not be taken lightly. Don't think you can't catch it, because you can. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, and the only way we're going to be able to stop this thing is by working together, so please wear your mask, follow social distancing guidelines." Drew is such a good promo, I now want to see him beat COVID in a match. But it's not just McIntyre that's been affected, as according to Fightful Select, the WWE champion is only one of several wrestlers that have tested positive, spanning across almost all nationally televised brands, with WWE, AEW, and Impact Wrestling being affected by this outbreak. Luckily for AEW, Wednesday's New Year's Smash Night 2 was taped in advance last week, so the show shouldn't have to undergo any further changes, although the planned Thunder Rosa vs Britt Baker match had already been replaced with Baker's waiting room segment, after Rosa came into contact with a positive case. Impact, however, could be significantly altered. While tonight's TV episode was pre-taped, this Saturday's big, hard-to-kill pay-per-view will be live, and could see multiple matches changed based on who's not available. Ringside News and the Wrestling Observer have also reported that a Smackdown star, who is currently involved in a storyline, has also tested positive for the virus. It's interesting to note how WWE have acknowledged Drew's positive result, but not any others. Kofi Kingston was also missing on last night's episode of Raw, which WWE specifically mentioned was because he'd broken his jaw, which Kingston himself has confirmed isn't just a cover for a potential positive COVID result. "I'm dealing with a jaw injury right now. My mouth is only closing on one side, and if I sound kind of funny, that's why." Unsurprisingly, with COVID diagnoses affecting the show, Raw was once again massively behind on finalizing its script. PW Insider reported that as of 7:02 p.m. EST last night, less than an hour before the show airs, the first hour was still not completed, while there were only rough outlines for hours 2 and 3. So here's a review of last night's hastily written episode of Raw in about 5 minutes. Thanks for your support on Patreon, The Blacksmith, Jason Smith, and the Mayor of Painesville, Dan. It's hard to properly critique this episode of Raw, as the positive COVID cases demanded so many last-minute changes. But then again, this is Raw, and rewriting a script just hours before the show is actually the standard workflow now. And what do you do when your back's against the wall? You distract people with a big shiny legend. Triple H opened the show, where I'm pretty sure the Thunderdome found a new volume level to pop specifically for the game, where he set up a main event with Randy Orton. Orton was originally meant to face Drew, so Randy and Hunter both awkwardly tiptoed around actually saying the word COVID. Triple H said he was proud of Randy for killing a man. What a mentor. But he went too far by saying hurtful things to the poor legends. Orton used the Hunter's balls are in Stephanie's purse line. It's super effective, prompting Trips to punch him and later agreed to a fight, promising to do it for all the legends, which is Goldberg's shtick. We then got that brilliantly sincere promo from McIntyre admitting he had tested positive for COVID, which would have been a much better cold open for the show. Triple H might feel disrespected on Ric Flair's behalf, but Flair just feels horny. Charlotte reportedly said she'd make her return when there's a good enough story for her, and that story is her dad sleeping with Lacey Evans. Because after Charlotte seemingly turned heel on Rick last week, it's actually Rick who turned on in more ways than one, helping Evans win. Which is a fine story. It's just a shame it's seemingly coming at the expense of the women's champion Asuka having something to do, and the small matter of having 71-year-old immune-compromised Ric Flair working in a company that just had a COVID outbreak. Reprising the rivalry, no one wanted, Jeff Hardy is now feuding with Elias again. Just when I thought I was out. Jackson Ryker beat Hardy in seconds, the perfect way, it seems, to build to Hardy versus Elias right after, which Hardy won, setting up the idea that Elias isn't as good as Ryker, but also that Hardy isn't as good as Ryker, so why should we care? Sheamus and Keith Lee's burgeoning friendship, however, was much better. They've had some tension over who's the better friend to McIntyre for months, but Lee apparently earned Sheamus's respect in last week's main event, organically getting them together as a team against a very obnoxious Miz and Morrison. It brought the best part of the show, where Lee charged Morrison in the corner so hard the top rope pinged off. That could have been a cool match-ending moment, but it was slightly wasted, just used as an ad-break throw. Sheamus blind tagged himself in to win, him and Lee hugged, and then they were fighting again. In another example of wrestlers pulling double duty, likely because of people out due to COVID, Sheamus worked over Lee's arm, but Keith fought through it to win with a spirit bomb, and then they hugged again. I actually thought this worked quite well and established both men's brawling, passionate relationship. Drew cut a promo on Goldberg from out of quarantine, saying he'll give Bill a lesson in respect as Goldberg's next. Used Goldberg's catchphrase there. Xavier Woods was in rare singles action, with Kingston out with that broken jaw, to take on Retribution's T-Bar. It's a treat to watch Woods wrestle alone. I really think he could and should be a solid mid-card champion. So, he got beaten by T-Bar. Matt Riddle told Lucha House Party that beating Bobby Lashley will be like eating a really tasty pizza, and then got confused about the expression, "watch your back," because he can't physically see his own back. Matt Riddle, you see, has a stoner gimmick. Lucha House Party hinted they'd be in Riddle's corner for his US Championship match, and weren't. Instead, the psychology was wildly off for this feud, because babyface Riddle effectively cheated last week to win, covering up his tap out. He got a title shot against heel champion Bobby Lashley here. Do you ever think Bobby's intimidating face also makes it look like he's going to cry? I think he's just thinking about how much he loves his three beautiful sisters. Lashley jumped Riddle before the bell, just like Riddle did last week, i.e. the babyface revenge spot, but for the heel, busting open Riddle's mouth. They had a really cool, clumsy few minutes. It felt real, but then Riddle tapped out in the Lashley lock, completely undermining this dream MMA feud. In another example of double duty, Riddle then called out MVP for a match, who wrestled in his suit for a few minutes before Lashley speared Riddle for a pointless DQ. This story is all over the place. Adam Pearce spoke about his Universal Championship shot, an actual thing that's actually happening, and then booked a Royal Rumble qualifying match, but he's definitely not an authority figure. It saw AJ Styles versus Drew Gulak in a fun short match, which Styles won thanks to the presence of that huge guy. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler were back together again to take on Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, who both declared for the Royal Rumble match, where they said they'll toss people over the top rope harder than Kim Kardashian tossed Kanye West to the curb. Shoehorn pop culture reference. Shayna tagged herself in to tap Mandy out, building tension with Jax. And the main event saw Randy Orton versus Triple H, a pretty decent last-minute draw with mainstream star power. So they had Hunter disappear a minute into the match, never to be seen again. If we did that on a thumbnail, it'd be clickbait. Similarly to Orton versus Christian last year, this was an angle more than a match. Triple H simply dropped Orton on the announcer's table, got a sledgehammer from under the ring, which mysteriously caught fire as the lights cut out Fiend style. Hey, I thought the burning hammer was banned in WWE. Credit to Troopercasts on Reddit for that joke. And he then got transported to whatever pocket dimension people go to when the Fiend plays with the lighting panel. Then, standing behind Orton, was Alexa Bliss, who blew a fireball in his face, Hadouken! Which Orton sold like Peter Griffin hurting his knee in Family Guy. Ah! 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 Bliss later explained this as an eye for an eye on her Instagram. No, that's Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins. This is you play with fire, you get burned. If supernatural silliness and someone shooting fireballs out their hand is your idea of ironic fun, then all the power to you. It's not for me though, and I would argue it's the exact kind of goofiness that gives pro wrestling a bad name and encourages your friends who don't like wrestling to make fun of you for liking it. And it is fair to heavily critique this angle because it was seemingly the original ending they had pre-recorded ahead of Drew's diagnosis. What did you think of Raw? Let me know in the comments down below and follow us on Twitter at WrestleTalk_TV to vote in a poll on a poll match. 38.2% of you went for good, but it was definitely negatively weighed. I can't be too hard on this episode because of the extenuating circumstances, but it still wasn't a good TV show. The Riddle title shot storyline is likely now beyond repair, the women's division has stalled, and I'm over seeing Supernatural Orton. This week's Raw is 2 out of 5. Find out the other reason why Drew McIntyre vs Goldberg is off to a bad start backstage by clicking the video on the right, and catch up with the latest WrestleTalk news by clicking the video below that. And remember to super kick that subscribe button and enable notifications to always on to never miss a video. I've been Mr. Davis. Jam that jam.